Day 2 of the ceasefire for hostage agreement with Hamas. Overnight, there were scenes of celebrations in Israel welcoming the 3 Israeli hostages in their first moments of freedom after 471 days in captivity. Early this morning, there were disturbing scenes of Palestinian security prisoners freed by Israel as part of the hostage for ceasefire deal. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Across Israel, the nation celebrated and many cried while watching the images of the 3 young Israeli hostages finally freed from Hamas captivity and reunited with loved ones after 471 days. Emily Damari, 28, Romy Gonen, 24, and Doron Steinbrecher, 31, met their mothers shortly after release from Gaza after preliminary medical assessments at a Gaza border airbase. They were airlifted to Tel Aviv Hospital to reunite with family and friends and begin the recovery process. Hundreds lined the roads cheering and singing to welcome the trio until they met family members at hospital for an emotional reunion with loved ones. Inside Gaza, the guns of war have fallen silent for the first time in 472 days. The IDF has deployed to defensive positions. There are scenes of displaced Palestinians moving through rubble-strewn streets in northern Gaza, trying to return to homes likely damaged or destroyed in the 15-month war that began with the Hamas attack on Israel in October 2023. And there were disturbing aspects to the hostage for ceasefire deal. A central part of the agreement includes the release of Palestinian security prisoners, convicted terrorists set free in the knowledge that many, if not most, will return to lives of terror. In compliance with terms of the deal, the prison service released 90 Palestinian security prisoners overnight. The inmates included 78 residents of Judea and Samaria and 12 residents of eastern Jerusalem. Those released included 69 women, 1 female minor, 8 male minors, and 12 men sentenced for relatively mild offenses. A total of about 2,000 inmates are due to be released during the first phase of the ceasefire deal. The agreement provides for the gradual release of Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners at a predefined ratio between 30 to 50 to 1. The Israeli authorities have emphasized that each phase of release is conditional on the success of the previous phase.
And now, with 3 of the hostages back in Israel, it's time for them to be surrounded by their loved ones and begin their road to recovery. ILTV's Ariela Lahiani is at Sheba Medical Center with more.
Thank you, Sivan. Yes, so I'm here now at Sheba Medical Center, where yesterday hostages Emily, Doron and Romy were brought after a long 15 months in Hamas captivity. Now, the 3 women will spend some time here, at least a few days, not just for physical recovery and treatment. You know, we can assume that none of the hostages have received any sufficient medical treatment in captivity. And we do know that both Romy and Emily sustained gunshot wounds on the 7th when they were taken hostage. And we've also since found out that Emily sustained a second gunshot wound to her leg. So the 3 women will spend time here to receive any of the physical checks and treatment that they require. But this time in hospital will also allow them the space to receive emotional support. They'll be provided with constant emotional support, psychological evaluations, and it will give them the privacy to be surrounded by their loved ones and begin this road to recovery, not just physically, but also mentally. After 471 harrowing days in captivity, 3 Israeli women abducted by Hamas, 28-year-old Emily Damari, 24-year-old Romy Gonen, and 31-year-old Doron Steinbrecher are finally back home. Their return, part of a fragile ceasefire agreement, marks a moment of relief and unity for Israel. The reunion began at an IDF medical facility near the Gaza border, where the hostages were met by their mothers after more than 15 months apart. Doctors confirmed their physical condition is stable, allowing them to focus on reconnecting with their families before addressing medical concerns in detail. The emotional journey continued at Tel Aviv Hospital in Ramat Gan, where the women reunited with extended family. Emily Damari, abducted from kibbutz Kfar Aza, showed incredible resilience. Shot during the October 7th attack, she lost 2 fingers. Despite her injuries, her family described her as a fighter and the happiest woman in the world. Romy Gonen, seized from the Supernova Music Festival, was described by her mother as the embodiment of strength, and Doron Steinbrecher, a veterinary nurse also abducted from kibbutz Kfar Aza, is beginning her journey to heal, surrounded by family and friends.
With the release of 3 female hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, day 1 of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire is completed, with more such days to come. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is in Hostage Square now with what we can expect to see in the coming days.
Well, the excitement was unbelievable here in Hostage Square last night as hundreds of people came out to watch the live stream of these 3 female hostages being released by Hamas terrorists. With this ceasefire underway, Israel is expecting more hostages to be released in less than a week. The excitement of seeing hostages Emily Damari, Doron Steinbrecher, and Romy Gonen walk out of Gaza last night was a breath of relief for the hundreds of people who came out to support in Tel Aviv.
I'm excited. I was so nervous just that they will come safe and alive to their mother's hands. They were in the hands of terrorists for 471 days.
But the ceasefire hostage deal is not over yet. 4 more hostages are expected to be released on day 7 of the deal, which is Saturday. Because phase 1 is 42 days long, the remaining 26 hostages named in phase 1 will be released over the next 5 weeks. Israel believes the majority of the 33 hostages are alive, part of phase 1, which includes women, children, and men over the age of 50 and men with serious health conditions. As the released hostages spend their first 24 hours in Israel more than a year later, Emily Damari said in her first public comments that she has her life back. The number of hostages in Hamas captivity is now at 94, as the IDF rescued the body of fallen soldier Oron Shaul, who was killed in battle in Gaza in 2014 when his body was taken by terrorists. He is being laid to rest today in his hometown in Israel. It's unclear at this time which 4 hostages will be included in the second release starting on Saturday. At this time, we do know that the families of these hostages continue to push for the release of the 94 hostages that remain in captivity, whether they're alive or their bodies come back to Israel for proper burial. Sivan?
Thank you, Shosh. And joining me now is Brigadier General in the Reserves, Amir Avivi, founder and chairman of the Israel Defense and Security Forum. Thank you for joining us in studio.
My pleasure.
So how would you say, we're on the second day of this ceasefire, how would you conclude the first day? How did it go? We saw a lot of images and videos on both sides with practically the entire world glued to their screens, certainly here in Israel. How would you conclude the first day?
I think that when people saw the girls coming back, you see it with your eyes and you understand how important it is to bring all the hostages back. I think there is a huge excitement in Israel and happiness, but also people are worried. They see Hamas operatives, they see Hamas is still controlling the society in Gaza, and people ask what's next. And the good news I want to convey is that Israel is resolute to achieve all the goals of war, to bring back all the hostages, but also to eradicate Hamas as a governmental and military entity and create a reality in Gaza that never again there will be a terror army in Gaza. I've just come from a meeting with the Ministry of Defense, with the leadership of IDSF, very long meeting. I was very happy for what I heard from the Minister of Defense and the fact that it's crystal clear that Israel needs to win decisively this war. And winning the war is bringing the hostages, but also eradicating Hamas and making sure that Israel and the South is safe for generations to come.
Well, it's clear that Hamas wanted to project an image of victory. We see them, they lined up their men with machine guns and cars and pickup trucks, and on the streets there was a whole production orchestrated for this purpose. What do you make of this, and do you think the world buys it?
So, you know, all these operatives you saw, these are the cowards that ran away from the IDF and hid in the humanitarian zone behind their own citizens and our hostages. You saw how clean the uniforms were. These were not guys who fought anywhere, okay? So they can do Bollywood productions and everything, but the reality is that Hamas has been hit very, very hard. Tens of thousands of Hamas operatives were killed and injured. The IDF, in every single encounter, won decisively every battle. And now we are using the time of this ceasefire to move troops to the area of Judah and Samaria and to deal with the rise of terror in this region So the IDF is not stopping for a moment. It's operating in Lebanon, in Syria, focusing now more on Judea and Samaria, but also preparing the next stage in Gaza. And the next stage is going to be completely different. Different tactics, different strategy, in order to really be able to achieve the goals of war.
Never a day of rest in securing the state of Israel.
Definitely.
The girls last night arrived home to their families. They were safe and alive and fairly in good physical condition. We don't know what they went through, but just from the looks of it, they looked okay physically. Unfortunately, that may not be the case for every hostage that returns home in this deal. Are we expecting some very turbulent weeks ahead?
Definitely, and unfortunately, Hamas is going to try and do everything it can to do a psychological warfare on the Israeli society. And we need to know that, and we need to be prepared. There will be difficult moments. We don't know if Hamas will really go through the whole first stage. We are hoping it will. But I think that, today a new administration is starting in the US. President Trump is starting his first day in the White House. And I'm very confident that he will give Israel all the support Israel needs in order to really achieve our ability to bring back the hostages and win this war. So for us, it's a very, very important day today.
Absolutely. Now, in addition to joy, there's also a bittersweet feeling that many Israelis feel that in regards to the price, in the weeks to come, hundreds of terrorists with blood on their hands who committed heinous crimes, murderous crimes against Israelis, they will be released as well, and may go back to committing the exact same crimes again. What are your thoughts about this price?
So obviously the Israeli citizens, and I think also throughout the Jewish world, people look at the Gilad Shalit event, when we released more than 1,000 terrorists, and then we pursued a strategy of containment, and these terrorists took control and grew terror to huge, forces that we encountered on the 7th of October. I think that what is different now, yes, these released terrorists are a danger, but when Israel says we are going back to war, and we are going to eradicate these terror organizations in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, this is the answer and the way to mitigate dramatically this danger. Yes, we are experiencing a kind of setback. We have done a lot to promote the goal of eradicating Hamas as a military entity. We'll experience some setback in the coming months, but as long as we go back fighting and finishing the job, it will be a momentarily setback and not something that will have long-term repercussions. So it's just about really pursuing the goals of war and winning on all fronts.
Amir Avivi, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Moving to Israel marks the beginning of a new chapter, and Pitaro Hecht helps you make it truly yours. Transform your home with interiors that blend style, comfort, and timeless design, from luxurious living spaces to thoughtful details. With high-quality craftsmanship at great value, we create spaces where memories are made. For your new life in Israel, choose Pitaro Hecht, where your home begins.
A terror attack in northern Samaria targeted an IDF patrol with a roadside bomb. The IDF announced the 31-year-old Staff Sergeant Evyatar Ben Yehuda was killed and a senior officer was severely wounded in the incident. A third soldier was moderately hurt. According to an initial IDF probe, the soldiers were riding in a light armored vehicle during a patrol in the town of Tamun when the roadside ordnance was detonated. In a momentous ceremony in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump took the oath of office, becoming the 47th president of the United States. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman is there on the ground.
It is absolutely frigid here in Washington, D.C., as U.S. President Donald Trump was sworn in on two Bibles, one that he received from his family and another one that belonged to former President Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s. Now, the cold weather forced the inauguration to go indoors, which means there were a limited number of people who could actually attend the ceremony itself, but there were plenty of watch parties and festivities throughout the D.C. area. In addition, as you know, there was a festive event held in Jerusalem to celebrate the inauguration of President Trump. There are high hopes for the Israeli people that this will usher in a new or golden era for U.S.-Israel relations. The night before the swearing in of U.S. President Donald Trump, he criticized the Biden administration, claiming he had accomplished more in the Middle East in recent months than his predecessor did during his entire term. Speaking at a rally last night, Trump praised the recent ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, which he described as epic. He attributed the agreement to the Republican victory in the November U.S. elections, calling it a first step toward lasting peace in the Middle East. Trump also announced plans to direct the military to begin construction of an Iron Dome. He emphasized that the system will be built in the United States. With Trump's inauguration, Republicans now control all three branches of policymaking government, the House, the Senate, and the White House, giving them the chance to fulfill promises to combat anti-Semitism and support Israel. In his first 100 days, Trump is expected to issue dozens, if not hundreds, of executive orders, addressing both domestic and foreign policies. His administration has signaled an immediate reversal of what he has labeled as every radical and foolish executive order of the Biden administration. For Israel, this could include revoking Biden-era sanctions on Israeli citizens and nonprofits in Judea and Samaria. Trump has also suggested he will confront Iran's growing nuclear capabilities, a move many expect, at least in part, to define his foreign policy priorities. As I mentioned, we should know fairly quickly what decisions the new U.S. president will make and how that will impact Israel. I'll be here in Washington for the next few days, and we'll be able to check back in. For now, back to you.
Thank you, Maayan. And also joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Canadian-Israeli businessman and philanthropist Sylvan Adams. Thank you so much for joining.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Sylvan, you're now in Washington, D.C. You have been invited to the inauguration. Can you tell us what you're doing there today and about your work?
As you mentioned early in your previous report, the inauguration was moved indoors, and unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to be on the platform when the president took the oath of office. A very, very small guest list was accommodated, and the rest of us had to go to the Capital One Center, the arena where the basketball team plays, and we watched it on a screen. So it's not quite the same, but we had there are galas every evening, and we had President Trump and Vice President Vance. We had a number of cabinet members, Mike Johnson. So I got a chance to meet the incoming administration. I met Ambassador Huckabee, and it's a new era and very exciting to see a president who is so strong on Israel and a cabinet that is the most Israel-friendly cabinet, I think, in American history. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a very exciting moment and a privilege to have been invited.
Now, you're all about people-to-people diplomacy. This is something that was noted. Tell us more about this. What do you foresee of your possible collaboration with the Trump team?
Right. So, I am known. I own a professional cycling team, the Israel Premier Tech team, that carries the name Israel, and we race all around the world. We bring the good name of Israel to sports fans, to the people that I call the silent majority, not the vocal haters, not the anti-Semites that we've seen, manifesting in a very ugly manner all across the West, but to regular people, sports fans, and we carry the good name. And I got friendly with the U.S. administration in Trump's previous term, 6 months before the signing of the Abraham Accords. My bicycle team was invited to race in the UAE, and we rode all over the country with Israel emblazoned on our jerseys, and we had little Emirati kids waiting in line to receive a souvenir water bottle with the word Israel on it. So 6 months later, the peace negotiators told me that this was noted by the Emirati authorities, and that there wasn't any grassroots hostility to us. On the contrary, we were warmly received. And as I said, 6 months later, I was again, privileged to have been invited to Washington, D.C., to the White House to witness the signing of the accord. So this people-to-people diplomacy creates the conditions really for warm peace between nations. And this is what we've seen with Bahrain and Morocco and the UAE. And hopefully, very soon, the Saudis, and I even hear talk about Indonesia joining the party. So hopefully we will expand the Abraham Accords very, very soon.
President Trump is now in office once again. He's expressed support for Israel during his campaign and ever since. How do you think this will translate into actual policy decisions moving forward?
So I think that the biggest strategic problem right now in the Middle East, clearly, as it has been for a while, is Iran. We've taken care of their proxies, a couple of their most ferocious proxies. Hamas is more or less decimated, even though they are celebrating. They're celebrating their defeat, is what they're celebrating, because we are getting our hostages back, thank God. And of course, we've destroyed, virtually destroyed Hezbollah, which again led to the fall of the Assad administration in Syria. So, and we've taken out the missile defense systems of Iran. So Iran has never been weaker, but Iran remains a threat. We cannot allow Iran to become a nuclear power. Not just Israel, but the entire Western alliance cannot allow this. And I'm hoping that behind the scenes, they are preparing a very strong response to this strategic threat that faces not only Israel and upsetting the entire peaceful existence of countries in the Middle East, but as I said, the entire Western alliance. We cannot allow this fanatical regime where they believe that martyrdom is a goal to pursue in life, to have such destructive weapons.
Sylvan Adams, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Dr. Mike Evans, the Friends of Zion Museum, and ILTV News hosted a special celebratory event honoring President Donald J. Trump. This event, which the president himself is aware of and plans to watch following his inauguration, made for an unforgettable evening. Tune into our YouTube channel to watch the event at the Friends of Zion Museum, featuring a captivating panel discussion and interviews with top ministers. Now, here's something I can personally recommend. I'd like to invite you to the next ILTV community webinar. This exclusive event gives our paid subscribers a unique opportunity to connect directly with our editor, Steve Leibowitz. You'll have the chance to ask questions about the news and discuss the issues that matter most to you. As you know, Steve is a veteran Israeli journalist who has been covering Israeli news since the days of Prime Minister Begin. And he leads the team that decides what makes it into our news show each day. Don't miss this webinar. It's an event you'll definitely want to be part of. Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of around 9 degrees Celsius or 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see more cloudy skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of about 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.